right. Are we going out?
We should be. Let me wait. Looks like we're good. Let
All
me
right.
check. Let me check the audio.
We going out?
Believe we're good.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is
Why
the
would
American
I
Greed
do
Factory.
capacity?
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes the candles to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Tonight, we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about. Don't know how long we're going to be here, so savor this episode like fine wine. Because there might be some speed bumps along the way. It's been a tumultuous week, at least in my house, so and we're still living with the aftermath of that. But despite all the adversity, we're here. I know everyone can now breathe a sigh of relief that we've made it. Catching up on well, let's see what happened. What's going on in the car world right now? There's a lot of stuff going on. Everyone's being indicted. General Motors is suing
Chrysler. Yeah, I saw that.
It's kind of a weird premise, their case, but I think that's more of a spoiler for the Peugeot merger than because nothing.
Who's Peugeot merging with Chrysler? Chrysler. Okay.
Fiat Group.
That seems that makes sense to me. They're both European, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fiat is Italian. Peugeot is French.
Yeah.
They have no presence here, and they've never successfully had presence here since like the 70s. And they're probably not going to, because Fiat does not have a successful presence here. But Chrysler makes a buttload of money, so that makes sure a bunch of Italians get to have their pensions.
I believe Peugeot has like a considerable presence in some racing.
Yeah.
But that's all I know them for.
It's a French car maker. They're weird. The French have huge. I mean, they have pretty big. They have Renault Group. They have Citroën, which they sell in Canada but not here. And they do weird things like make sedans and put like turbocharged V8s in them.
Yeah.
But they're horribly unreliable. Have you ever watched the movie? What was the movie about the spies? It was Robert De Niro, and they had the great car chases in it.
Oh, Ronin?
Yeah. Okay. All the bad guys in those drove high-powered Peugeots, and all the good guys drove Audis. So.
Yeah, it was interesting about Renault. So they're in F1.
Yeah.
And so last year, so they were what do you call it? It's like a manufacturer because there's only like 3 engine manufacturers.
Okay.
How many? There's 4. So there's Mercedes, there is Renault, there is Honda, and then there's Ferrari. So there's 4 engine manufacturers.
All right.
And then but there's like 10 teams. So everybody like basically buys engines from these 4 manufacturers. And last year Red Bull did have Renault engines, and they're like, fuck that, we're going to Honda. And at this point, Honda was classically known as a fucking terrible engine.
Okay.
They
for Honda, but yeah.
They just had like no speed. Because one of the big hurdles was like they went to the hybrid engine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so really only Mercedes had like hit the ground running with that. And nobody else did. And so Honda was like way behind. But they've done like really good this year. Like the last race, they got a 1-2 victory. They got 1 and 2. Max Verstappen won the race for Red Bull, and then coming in second was Pierre Gasly for Toro Rosso, which is their B team, which also uses Honda engines, and that's the first 1-2 for Honda in like 20 years or some shit like that.
Okay.
Anyway, so Renault is also, like, I believe in 2 years or in 2020 when they switched to the new car. McLaren is is the last person to buy Renault engines. They're gonna get Mercedes engines, so nobody's gonna have a Renault engine except for Renault.
Okay.
Also, the thing about Renault engines is that they're completely unreliable and they're more expensive than the Mercedes engines.
That makes sense. That's a winning concept. I mean, I didn't go to the Harvard Business School. It sounds like a plan for success.
I mean, there's like fits and spurts where it seems like the Renault engine has like unbelievable speed, but it's just like it has a lot of reliability problems. So, and it hasn't been outperforming the Ferrari engines, which kind of has the top speed. Of course, they have something weird where it's like apparently they have like an intentional oil leak in their fuel line that helps with like reliability somehow.
Well, they run a two-cycle engine. They're mixing the fuel and the gas.
Yeah, it seems like it was like they were talking about something. I don't know the technical details, but it seemed like there seemed to be like some sort of like unreliability with the fuel line and the oil line that was actually creating a positive effect for them.
Like top cylinder lubricant, oil in with the fuel.
Yeah, I don't know the technical details, but that's like what it sounded like for a novice like me. I don't, these are wildly complicated engines. They literally cost $20 million a piece. So
Yeah. Like, what are these engines like? Well, how many liters do they typically displace?
oh, I don't know the liter displacement.
How many RPMs do they scream at? Though?
Well, I mean they go about 250 miles per hour. That's what I know.
Yeah. How many running gears they have?
7.
Okay, that's. Yeah, you're probably working. That motor's probably operating 11,000 RPMs. For I mean, I'm just throwing shit against the wall here, but I'm guessing because I mean, they used to have like Lola V12s in those cars.
Yeah.
Day, and they don't do that anymore.
Well, that was a funny. Like, there was a race where Sebastian Vettel, his car just like shut down because of the the power plant failed somehow, and it was like the electric motor that did, and like he got pissed and he's like, bring back the V12s. And then like somebody like did a whole list of like, oh, here's how many races a V12 could actually survive throughout a season. It was like 8 races in a season.
Yeah,
the V12s weren't actually good, and like I think there's only one winner that actually won with a V12 race car, and like and they were used in like 8 seasons or something like that. It was the V8s that were actually like the best cars.
Yeah, but remember, these are V12 engines that might displace 4 liters. So you're talking about a tiny, it's not like you think V12, you're thinking American V8's like, oh, it's like, a V8 and a fourth. It's like, no. These are really, because I remember they used to have aluminum connecting rods, aluminum pistons, anything to build RPMs. And yeah, that stuff was on the edge of material science back then. It was not falling to pieces.
But yeah, it was really interesting. The Brazilian Grand Prix was this last weekend, and there's basically nothing to fight for except for like second, third, and fourth place because Mercedes already won the Lewis Hamilton's already won the drivers' championship. Mercedes already won the constructors' championship. So pretty much just like everybody else is like trying to get to the top. So the Mercedes, like they still fought. Pretty hard, but there was just you didn't have to put your heart in it because there's no reason to.
Yeah.
And the Ferraris crashed themselves out of the race. So whenever you're one of the top 2 teams in the leagues, it gets eliminated from the race from each other. That's always fun.
Yeah.
And then Valtteri Bottas, his car like caught on fire or something, so he had to stop.
Oops.
So you basically have like usually like the top 4 drivers are suddenly out of the race, so that's where you get interesting results. That's where Max Verstappen comes in first, Pierre Gasly comes in second, and that's a whole interesting story because Pierre Gasly started the season on the Red Bull team, and like he was coming in like he was coming in the top 10, he was getting points, but it's like Max Verstappen was always like on podium like 1 through 3, but Pierre Gasly was always on like 6 through 8, like that's where he finished. And it's like, well, with the car you have, like you should be doing at least as well as Max Verstappen, but you seem to have like 3 or 4 cars between you and Max Verstappen. And it even got to a point where so every driver has their own setup that they that them and their engineer figure out for each race. Like the camber and the displacement and all that shit like that, and the brake bias, things like that. And so at some point, Red Bull just like took away Pierre Gasly's like input on that and says like, no, you're just gonna run Max Verstappen's setup.
Just gonna veto all your thought process. You're gonna do what the winners do. Jim.
And so like midway through the season, they put him back down to Toro Rosso on the B team, and then Alex Albon came up to Red Bull, and he's done very well. So it seems like this is probably going to be the setup for next year. So this race happens, like a bunch of crazy shit happens. Ferraris wreck themselves out of the race. Bottas is gone, and then like somehow Pierre Gasly at the end of the race is in a drag race with Lewis Hamilton. Like they literally finished like in 1/100 of a tenth of a second off of each other as they cross the finish line. So Pierre Gasly gets his first podium ever. I think he's the youngest person to ever have a podium because I believe he just turned 20 like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, that's nuts.
So yeah, it was really good for him because he's kind of had like a really bad year, and to get a podium, especially in this field where Ferrari and Mercedes kind of just run away with it, and Red Bull's up there too. But Toro Rosso's the B team, and they don't do as good as Red Bull. So to see him on the podium was like, it was really nice for him to get that. And then probably the best driver that isn't one of those top three teams is Carlos Sainz. He comes in third after Lewis Hamilton gets a penalty because he like wrecked. He knocked Alex Albon off the track. And Alex Albon was probably going to come in third, but they ended up coming in like 6th or something like. It was like the last lap where he knocked him off the track.
Oh, okay.
So that was like disappointing for him. But so he gets a penalty. So Carlos Sainz comes in third. Carlos Sainz had trouble in qualifying. His car basically blew up, and he had to start in last place. So he went from last place to a podium.
That's a high hill to climb.
Yeah. He's a really good racer. I mean, he's in the McLaren. The weird thing, because the McLarens are running the Renault engine, but they're doing better than the Renault team, which is fascinating.
There's some engineering wizardry going on.
Well, McLaren's like pretty much turned it around. Like they've been like, because like in that Amazon series, it's Netflix, Drive to Survive. Like they talk about how McLaren is like the one team with money that gets the worst results.
Oh, okay.
And so finally, like they're not up there with Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari, but they're just behind. They're the 4th place team currently. So
Well, eventually, with patience, your investment pays off.
well, I heard something like they changed their whole management structure, and that seemed to really help. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they changed to. It seemed like I think they changed it to a more modular structure, and I think before it used to be like it was very like
It was top down. One
Yeah.
guy does and everyone
yeah,
does.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Take heed, Detroit Lions.
Explain.
Oh, it's just why the Detroit Lions is most money, least return. One of the most hurt football teams you'll ever see. They've got the players. They've got the coach. They've got, all kinds of weird stuff going on. Okay, I think my delivery guy's here.
All right, time to talk about wrestling.
All We'll be back.
So this week, Jim Cornette got canceled. So, like, when we say canceled, he said something vaguely racist. Well, no. I mean, it depends who you are. It was either vaguely racist or just racist. And he is currently a commentator for, or was a commentator for NWA Power. And Jim Cornette is for wrestling, an excellent storyteller. And what is that? Commentator for wrestling. He, he's very quick on the draw. He's funny. And he just knows his shit. He's a very good historian because he started. He was like a photographer when he was like 14 in wrestling. So he's literally been working for wrestling for about 50 years. No, maybe 40 years. Yeah, because I think he's. Like, I don't even think he's in his 60s yet, but he's been around forever. And so during one of the NWA Power shows, he says a line that he's used before, and it's meant to hype up the guy he's talking about. It's like, say he's tough. And what he said was, Trevor Murdoch is the only guy I know who could strap a bucket of fried chicken to his back and motor scoot across Ethiopia. And which, it's meant to say he's tough, but like, the most racist thing you can extract out of that, it's like, oh, all Ethiopians are starving and homicidal and need fried chicken, and black people want fried chicken. That's never a good mix when you're a white guy talking about it. And so, Jim Cornette wasn't going to apologize for the line, and so he decided to quit. Now, it's hard to say that Jim Cornette is racist, because I don't think he is. He's just stuck in his ways. He's not grown over the years. Because back in like the late 70s, early 80s, he's probably like a socially progressive person. He was always championing people of color, people of, non-binary genders and stuff to be in wrestling. Now, was he like promoting them as like, these people should be shot at human beings, or was he promoting them as just here's a spectacle that people can hate? Probably more of that. But yeah, no. Jim Cornette's probably more socially progressive than he's given credit for. But regardless, it was not in good taste in today's standards, so he will not be on NWA Power, which is a shame. I don't know. The thing about Jim Cornette is a professional asshole. He's really good at being an asshole. He's a very entertaining asshole, but he's an asshole nonetheless. So, and we don't know, but the interesting thing about this is that NWA Power is a show that's edited. It's not shot live. They shoot it, and like this show has been in the bank for like 2 weeks, and so they could have edited out that line. They had 2 weeks to edit out that line, and it got through essentially all of production. And it seems that there's only one guy like reviewing and editing the show, and he thought it was fine, and he let it go through. And then there's some flack for it, and then so he was trying to force Jim Cornette to apologize for it, and Jim Cornette's like, "Fuck that." And so he did not apologize for it, and he left NWA Power. So we'll see what happens. Jim Cornette's probably going to be on the next 2 NWA Power shows, because I think they shoot like 3 or 4 in a week. It's also kind of unfortunate because I believe in a couple weeks they're going to be doing their first pay-per-view in a long time. Well, they did one for the Crockett Cup, but they brought that back. So this will be NWA Into the Fire, which is their theme song of their show, which is a song performed by Dokken. Which I am forgetting what is Dokken's most famous song, but let's see here. Other wrestling stuff. NXT just beat AEW in the ratings in total viewers, but that's because they had a bunch of people from the SmackDown and Raw show came on there, and they had announced it ahead of time, which that gave them a boost. So that was the first time. So I don't know if that's sustainable. Yeah, but also it was like, fun for what it was, but it's not something sustainable. But I still enjoy AEW more. That AEW show was pretty great. The Nick Jackson versus Ray Phoenix, was an excellent match. It was just non-stop action until it stopped at the end. It was great. It was just really a lot of fun. And the next show in Chicago on Thanksgiving Eve looks like a banger. I mean, it basically looks like a pay-per-view show that will be going on TV. And I don't know, maybe they're doing that because they will be returning to the Sears Center, which that's where they shot All In. That's where they did All Out. And now they're coming back for Thanksgiving Eve. So it looks to be a good show. I will be at the show in Illinois, the University of Illinois, the week after that. So hopefully I expect it to be a good show, but like they haven't done a bad show yet, so I would be disappointed if this is the first bad AEW show and I'll be there live because I got to drive 4 hours to fucking go there. Got to bank up podcast or a book. I did get a new book because we've been reading Matterhorn by Ken Marlantes. Or Marlantes? I don't know how to say it. And I'll say Marlantes. And I really enjoyed the book. And so he had some other books that he wrote. And there's another kind of like dealing with Vietnam and coming back from war. And I was like, damn, I'm good for that. But he has another book that's like about, it seems to be like Dynasty, but about logging and like Poland immigrants in Oregon. And he's a really good writer. So I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll pick that up. So I got that. I don't even know what that's called. I'll have to look it up. Deep River. That's what it's called. Let's see here. Other wrestling nonsense. Well, Marty Scurll might be going to AEW. It's more than likely that he is, but it's still, he was in AEW when there was a team called The Elite. It's when they're in New Japan Pro Wrestling as well as Ring of Honor, it was a team that comprised of Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, Marty Scurll the Villain, and Hangman Adam Page. Maybe one more. Sort of Flip Gordon. He's kind of adjacent. So Marty Scurll's contract, I believe, is up this month, or it might already be up. So at any moment, Marty Scurll should be making an appearance in AEW. And that'll be exciting. Because so the thing to know about Marty Scurll is he comes to the ring in like a like Plague era apothecary mask that kind of looks like a bird beak, and then he'll have feathers and like an umbrella, and it's all nonsense, but it's fun. And he has a very catchy entrance music that involves engagement from the audience, where there's kind of these parts where it goes whoop whoop, and there's kind of like these echoing whoop whoops that the crowd will throw in there, and it's very effective when that happens. I have no idea where he'll show up because AEW doesn't have another pay-per-view till when is it? It'll probably be like next February, So yeah, I don't know. They've been what Marty's been doing. So like the thing that happened with the Elite is that all their contracts were up at the same time, except for Marty Scrolls because he was still signed with ROH for like another year. So that's why he's kind of been distanced from them, and everybody else got to leave at the same time, but except for him.
Yeah.
Wrestling. It's over.
Well, thanks for hanging with me there.
Yeah, no problem.
Everything, snowblower has been delivered. One less worry in the watches of the night. Because there may or may not be a major storm coming next week. It'll either be a lot of rain, or if we get an Alberta clipper, it'll be a lot of snow. And I was going to wait until next week to get this thing, but buying snowblowers in the middle of a snowstorm is a joke, and mine is officially broken, so safely delivered. Thanks, Dad. She told me which the best one to get was.
We were talking about audio industry stuff.
Oh, auto industry. Yeah, no, I was, the FCA GM lawsuit, which is, that's always good. That's a good way to block a merger because, no companies that want to merge want a bunch of hanging doubt about how much money and or legal fees they may or may not have to pay out. I don't know anything about the there's a lot of people going to prison right now. The president of the UAW stepped down. Basically, he's not admitting anything's wrong, but he's like, why are you quitting then? Okay. In the middle of contract negotiations, but whatever. So, yeah, the allegations that General Motors is making is because the number of Chrysler executives and employees that were indicted and are in prison now over the Chrysler scandal, they're saying that Chrysler's corrupt business practices under the CEO who died, I forget how to say his name, it affected General Motors' ability to effectively run their business, and it cost them money by getting corrupt labor contracts. Which my argument there is like, wait a minute, if you're paying off union people to get favorable contracts, you're not. How are you hurting GM? Because you're going to try to get a shittier deal for the people that those union guys are supposed to be representing. But I don't know. I think this whole industry is going to go through a lot of changes in the next 5 years. So
Yeah.
Because Tesla introduced their Cybertruck, which is an intriguing-looking DeLorean-inspired future vehicle
that's where I go. But is it inspired by the DeLorean? Did they say that?
It's made out of stainless steel, so
Okay, yeah, that's true.
and it has that weird. It uses that fractal architecture engineering where everything's like sharp angles.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it looks cool and also embarrassing.
Yeah, one of those things that's they're trying to make their mark in an industry no one's ever been able to compete successfully against American automakers in, which is trucks and SUVs.
Yeah.
Because even the great and holy Toyota, their trucks and SUVs are a joke compared to American ones, and no one's ever been able to break into that market.
Well, it seems like I haven't seen like a whole breakdown of it, but like it seems like vaguely like a DeLorean meets an El Camino with this weird cyberpunk aesthetic.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe the styling. Like I said, I call it that fractal engineering style.
Yeah, there's no curves. Everything comes to a point.
Yeah.
Like even the hubcaps it's like a stop sign of a hubcap.
Yeah. Prices are not outrageous for trucks, but they say, well, it's you can get one for $50K, and then you look at the specs and it's like, oh, it can go 200 miles on a charge. Awesome. Yeah, that's going to be useful for some people. But then you get up into this, the higher brackets, it's supposedly good for 500 miles.
Huh.
But they're directly aiming it at the Midwest auto manufacturers.
Oh.
And the place that has to be successful is the Midwest.
Yeah.
Us and Texas, and that's where all the trucks are sold. Specifically trucks. SUVs are popular across the country. And, they basically said they're throwing down the gauntlet, but remember the same auto show, Ford introduced the Mustang Model E, which is the weird four-door Mustang, which accelerates faster than the really super expensive Mustang.
Isn't it like an SUV as well?
It's a weird four-door Mustang with a high ride,
Okay.
but it's kind of like, hey, this is our thing. This is faster than the Teslas, and a F-150 electric pickup is coming out. I don't know what the range is on it yet. They're being quiet about it, but they're saying like the F-150 electric from the preview stuff they've shown people and some of the tech stuff they talked about is actually really impressive, and the price isn't off the planet if you want an electric pickup truck. But see, the difference between buying a Ford electric vehicle and a Tesla electric vehicle is you have customer support after the sale for buying parts, for making sure the damn thing runs. That's the whole dark side of Tesla they don't talk about, and is the service after the sale. I mean, not that their service is bad, but they're kind of like Apple. It's like, oh, something's wrong. We'll just, we'll practically rebuild the car for you, but it's going to take, X amount of weeks, and you're going to be out of car, and we'll maybe be a loaner. But
yeah, I have no personal experience, but what I thought, like, the advantage that they have is that, like, they're getting so much data from everyone's car that they're able to, like, respond to it. Maybe not well, but it's like an interesting, angle.
There are Teslas around here. People were curious, and you got to have disposable income to have a Tesla. It's not like a practical vehicle.
I haven't. I mean, the Tesla 3 is supposed to be that, but I've never seen any of those.
Oh, they're all over around here, and I know
Really?
people that have them, and I've talked to them, and the people that we buy a lot of pet supplies from, like that. Someone we know has one, and they asked me about it like years ago, like, oh, what do you think? I've been thinking about one of these. It's like, it's an unproven product from an unproven company. That's what I'm going to tell you. That's why I would, if I had the money, I wouldn't buy one. And guess what? It turns out I was right. They've had a lot of problems with it. I've heard a lot of people have problems with them, but it's kind of like a thing. It's like, I think people with money want to buy that as their extra car. And it's like, something's wrong with it. I can drive. I have a real car over. I have like an AMG Mercedes over here. I can drive, when I want to drive a real car, and then I have these kind of electric type vehicles. But.
I mean, it would have been like perfect for me because I'm like 8 miles from work, so I would never be out of range.
Yeah.
But or technically, like a Chevy Volt would work for me because even those are severely compromised, like my work commute would totally work on just the battery life.
Yeah, you could do a plug-in hybrid if you wanted to, or you could buy a real vehicle and drive it. Yeah. I don't. Those are not yet in the realm of real vehicles. On the longest it takes me to wait at a gas pump and and fuel my car is 15 minutes, and I can drive 400 miles after doing that. When you can get the charge time down to that, okay, we're talking now. And the car doesn't cost $250,000. Yeah, okay, we're talking now. I'd drive an electric car in a minute if it had those capabilities, but they don't. Now, if these new single latimer solid state batteries become a reality, which they're handing out Nobel Prizes for people to develop them, then that kind of stuff might be a reality. You won't see anymore. No one will have an internal combustion engine. You would want one at that point, because you could just do everything you need to do with an electric car. And a lot of companies are coming out with electric vehicles. I mean, Ford has spent billions buying companies.
Well, I mean, everyone's hedging their bets.
Well, I think
because either it takes off or it doesn't. I mean, eventually it'll be the thing.
Yeah.
But, unless, like, everyone picks up biodiesel. Everyone, it's like, why is there so many cars at the McDonald's? Like, oh, they all want the spent fried oil.
Fried oil is worth more as a used byproduct than it is as its original form.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see things like this. Thing with electric cars, that the big arguments, things that because I think stuff like that's cool too. I'd love to drive a car that just I didn't have to gas up all the time, but I mean not all the time, once every 2 weeks, but the thing is like you really get into the weeds on. It's like, well, what if 30% of Americans start buying electric cars like next year? Oh, or our power grid collapses.
Yeah.
Everyone's plugging in, everyone's getting 220, 100 amp service run into their house to charge these cars. Or the price of electricity goes through the roof, and everyone's like, well, I want my gas engine back because look, gas is $0.25 a gallon now.
Yeah, I see a parallel between this and like internet, where it's like everyone's cutting their cable. Like, yeah, we don't want cable anymore. We want, yeah, but like the same place you get your cable from is the same place you get your internet from. And it's like, well, fine, you'll cut the cable, and they'll just like fuck you over in some other way. It's like suddenly, oh, we got a data cap, and wait till you get the electric car cap, and oh, this was cool until they started fucking me over.
Yeah, so none of the systems we have in place right now are going anywhere in the next 20 years. They're just going to move around a lot. And people that have the income and feel like they want to live in a future world, they can have that stuff, and it's cool. But
yeah, I saw the Tesla truck had an interesting feature where it basically, like, because of the weird angle, essentially like the angle of the back of the car became a ramp for shit you could put in the back of the car.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of neat.
Oh, there's a lot of innovation in that.
I thought it was funny. I saw a car commercial for Chevy, and they were really touting their new tailgate.
Invisible trailer. The tailgate that's like a modular tailgate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember like the previous generation we're talking, because like Ford came out with that little like step that that came down, and then like Chevy made fun of it. It's like, you need a man step to get up in your truck, and like that was their marketing thing. It was like, yeah, our truck gate sucks, and they totally caved in. It's like, yeah, me and the missus are getting in this truck with our new modular tailgate.
You could tell that General Motors was running scared with the aluminum trucks, because remember they did like they would throw toolboxes in the bed of the truck, and it's like, yeah, if you edge drop a toolbox filled with lead from the screen, it's really gonna fuck the tailgate or the truck bed up of any pickup truck. I mean, I don't know. It's everyone always said the aluminum albatross was never going to sail, but when I look at the rebates, it's like, Ford's offering a certain rebate. You can get a low mileage lease on an F-150, or you can go 7 years, same as cash on an F-150. They're doing things like that. What they're not doing is offering $12,000 and $15,000 rebates per truck to buy. The other manufacturers are. I don't know how that's sustainable, but they've been doing it for the last year and a half. But yeah, I don't know. That gets into that finance side of the business, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we're holding money versus them giving rebates, and it's all kind of washes out the same. Because if they're getting a big rebate, but they're financing the vehicle at 5% and 6%, then we're getting all that money back because we self-finance, and it's like, okay, you're losing me now. Yeah, but what I don't see are big rebates on pickups for Ford. And we'll see what happens. The Cybertruck, they said it was bulletproof, and then the guy broke the glass in the LA Auto Show in the demo. So, but that shit happens. That
I found a new channel by accident. I think it's called the Modern Rogue.
Okay.
And it's like lock picking and like cybersecurity shit.
Oh, okay.
And they're showing off their
skills channel.
And they're showing off like their everyday carry thing, which is basically like have a lock pick and all this matches and stuff, and like something of it like in an Altoids can.
Yeah.
And there was this one where it's like it was just a little piece. It was like a piece of duct tape, but then inside you like open up the duct tape. It was like basically like a little pocket made out of duct tape, and inside it is just like pieces of porcelain from the end of a spark plug.
Okay.
And that's because if you just like break off pieces of porcelain from the end of a spark plug and just throw it at a car window, it will shatter immediately.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And they showed pictures of it. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? there's a whole scientific explanation, but that was like, yeah, have this thing that can break into cars really quickly that's incredibly small and out of the way.
Or you could buy one of those survival tools that has the window punch on it. It'll do
Yeah, yeah, but that's bigger than just like this little piece of thing that's
yeah,
like
it doesn't fit, yeah, it's not a.
doesn't. You can have an Altoids case full of like 30 different things that can be useful.
What was the most destructive thing I saw? Oh, people. I know someone who put a reloaded shotgun shells with spark plugs out of lawnmowers because some of them are only like that long, or out of weed whackers, and they were firing them at like engine blocks, and they would shatter. Holy fuck, that's amazing. This is the same kind of person. I know this guy's been a friend of mine for years. I get the mentality. But yeah, he was just loading up at a bench of 12-gauge shotgun shell. Watch this. Boom, clink, and it sounded like shattering glass. I go, what? Where does this come in handy? Well, if you got to stop a vehicle. It's like, what? When? Okay, I'll remember this. He wasn't. The scary thing was, he wasn't even putting that much power in.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a full 12-gauge triple charge smooth bore. No, he just put like a half the charge of powder in it and just fired it, and it shattered an engine block. It's like, where did you learn this? He goes, oh, you learn all this. This is before the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that spark plugs are they're worth keeping. They're destructive. I've never heard that technique you're talking about, but I know what they can do.
Oh yeah, the guy just had it in his hand and he just like barely chucks it at the window, and the window just fucking shatters.
Yeah. Is that on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently they had a show on the National Geographic channel, but then that went up, so now they have this YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. That's
it's like vaguely it's like Mythbusters adjacent, except it's
Okay.
all about like lock picking and cybersecurity and all that stuff, or getting off the grid, things like that. But like in a fun way, not in like a not maniacal prepper way. It's not.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like the maniacal tone guys. You know who I've been watching lately on YouTube? It's my new favorite channel. It's the this guy's. He's from Canada. He's from they call it Edmonton, but he calls it Deadmonton a lot. And he's just like a guy who likes to camp in extreme circumstances in Canada.
Yeah.
And it's like, can you camp in a tent? And it's like minus 60 outside, and he always has to do that. He's like, oh, it's like minus whatever here. He goes, well, wait a minute, yeah, and in Fahrenheit, and then it'll show up on the screen. He goes, I don't know Fahrenheit, but I know, yeah. So he does explain it, but he'll do like, I'm gonna put a wood stove in a fishing hutch, and it's like so cold outside that my what happened? Oh, he left his keys like outside in a bag, and something was wrong with his truck. It was like a Blazer, or no, it was like a Suburban type truck, and so he couldn't unlock the doors because the doors were always frozen, the lock mechanisms, and he left his keys outside, and his key fob wouldn't open his truck. And he was like, well, we're here for a while, and it was so cold outside, it was like the tent was freezing, like it was frost inside, but he had this wood stove going. It was like one of these amazing camper stoves. He always makes like lasagna, and then he always jokes about it. And now we're going to have a small amount of whiskey. And he has like a plastic cup, and he'll fill this cup of whiskey like this much. It's time for a short whiskey. Like a guy that's like just doing crazy stuff in Canada. Like he camps. I don't know. What does he do for a living? He's like an HVAC guy.
Yeah.
So he's like a contractor guy. But he'll like camp out in the woods for 8 months in the winter and just go to work and come back. And it's like, wow, this is, and he'll just shoot videos about it. But it's kind of laid back and cathartic, It's like, oh, this guy's having fun, and he's got crazy neighbor who looks like Neil Young but doesn't talk much. Got a cowboy hat on, and he's like, hey, and he's always smoking in the background, and he tries to get off the camera. But they made a camping tent that floated on the river. They took a homemade boat and built like a wood structure where you could camp on the river. But then he was like, but you can't drink on the boat because there's real strict laws about that here. So we're going to have to stay sober. But they were just kind of drifting down a river. And at night they'd anchor up. And they were like cooking lasagna or something on their stove. It's just crazy. And it's all like, it's not, this guy's not using like stuff out of the REI catalog. And he's just like, I got this at Canadian Tire. And I'm going to try this thing out here. And we're going to have, I finally got the joke from South Park about craft dinner. Because remember, Terrence and Phillip always wanted to go home and have
that's a Canadian
craft
thing.
macaroni and cheese is
Yeah.
all it is.
Yeah.
But they call it craft dinner.
And ketchup.
Yeah.
Canadians love to put ketchup in their Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Well, he made craft dinner one night, and he's like, and you can buy the powder separate where the cheese is, and it had a thing, and he poured a bunch of it in there. And it's like, good for you. But he, of course, had drank like a small cup of whiskey. So he's pretty much, what did he call it, being slaughtered. That's a term, I guess. But yeah. But it's just relaxing to watch him do this stuff. Like, I would never do any of this stuff, but this guy's having fun. You know?
Yeah. It's his hobby.
Yeah, and they just like rogue camping, like camp someplace you're not supposed to camp, and this is how you set up a blind so they can't see you from the road. And you can have a fire, and then he'll do hammock camping where you just set up shit between two trees and camp.
Huh.
Yeah, he has all these things like that he's doing. He's always talking about like camping on Crown land where you can do whatever you want to, but most of the camping around where he lives you have to pay, because Crown land's what we would call like federal Bureau land.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he's like, on Crown land you can camp anywhere, but it's really far away from him, and in the winter it's not a problem, but in the summer everyone's camping. And then he has camping friends that he talks about going camping. But basically what it is a bunch of people getting drunk in tents is the vibe I'm getting. But it sounds like fun.
Surviving with alcohol.
Yeah. He's always driving a different car because all his cars are really old. So he's always got like one time he had the Suburban, then the next time he was driving a Grand Prix, and he was like, yeah, I don't think the oil pump's going out on this. Or so he's out in the middle of the woods in winter. It's like, I hope the oil pump keeps going. I'm not going to be able to walk out of here. And then he'll take like the cheapest camping gear you can buy and go camping in November in Edmonton. It's like, you could do this, you know. You don't need expensive. That's always his thing, is like, you don't need expensive stuff to do. You need a good stove. But, you know, you don't need like the most expensive sleeping bags and the best gear and all that. Go to Canadian Tire, and they have, which is like, to me it sounds like a tire store, but it seems more like a kind of a Walmart.
Yeah.
Like they have camping gear and tires, and I don't know. I've never been there.
Sounds like a Tyson's Farm and Fleet.
Yeah, more like something like that. Yeah,
It's like, here, get a Carhartt jacket and a tire for a real fucking tractor. And a shotgun.
yeah, it's like we have a Tractor Supply here.
Yeah.
And then I discovered through that there's all kinds of Canadian camping YouTube channels, and it's all kinds of similar people.
Yeah, I think. Do you remember Survivor Man?
Yeah.
I believe he was Canadian.
Okay.
And he kind of had a similar thing. Well, like his whole thing was, so he wasn't like Bear Grylls, where he had like a team of people following him around and they staged a lot of shit. He just like took a camera out in the wilds and he was the crew and he filmed it. And if he got home and there was an episode on TV, you know, he survived.
Yeah. Yeah. The last episode was like a Blair Witch. Like, he didn't make it. But yeah, there seems to be this whole subgenre of this wormhole. It's what I watch after work before bed. It's like, I'm going to watch something relaxing. Okay, these guys seem about as relaxed as you can get. And they're doing something weird in a cool place. Because when you get out in the wilderness in Canada, like, that's different wilderness than we have.
I mean, it's basically Alaska.
Yeah, but it's nobody's been to a lot of those places, or at least not very many people.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the places these guys go, it's like you don't see anyone for 3 days. Like, you don't even see a car drive by in the distance. Like, that's crazy.
I mean, Canada's almost like Australia, where it's like, it's huge, but everybody just lives in like, you know, like 10% of the land of Canada.
The life belt right along.
I remember there was an interesting conversation about like the speaking of temperatures, somebody was like talking about in defense of Fahrenheit. Because where Celsius makes sense for like scientific needs, Fahrenheit makes sense for like
Emotional needs.
no, well, yeah, I mean, vaguely, but like, so you're going to live in the temperature between 0 and 100.
Yeah.
Like it'll be cold enough out to be 0, and it might get near 100, and you know all the degrees in between. You know what it's gonna feel like.
Yeah.
Where Celsius doesn't really have that kind of like gradual increase. Like, okay, these are all the temperatures gonna be. It's like you're basically getting like 0 to 24. That's like Celsius. That's all.
It's 30 Celsius. Life will start. Cellular division stops at 32 Celsius. It doesn't have the punch of it's 110 degrees. Yeah.
But like with Fahrenheit, like you're going to live between 0 and 100, and that's actually like increments of 10. It actually, and temperature that you're living in, it actually makes more sense with like the metric system or whatever.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Which I never thought of that before. I was like, oh yeah, that's why Fahrenheit makes somewhat sense.
Yeah, because when you get into small numbers in Fahrenheit, it's like it's 17 degrees out. You know exactly in your mind what that low number is going to mean.
Yeah.
And if there's a 20-mile-an-hour wind, you can almost do the calculations yourself. Like, oh god, this is really going to suck. But yeah, when it's like it's -8 in Canada, like you're thinking, whoa, and then you're like, oh wait a minute, that's like 20 degrees. Oh, okay. I mean, you wouldn't want to sleep outside. Still here?
Yeah, no, I thought I had something else to jump to, but I was, and somewhere along the line, I was going to link up with a Mandalorian. It was going to be something about like Survivor Man, and his Blair Witch lost found footage movie, and then like what's that guy's name? He's in the Mandalorian, the German like.
Oh, Werner Herzog?
Yeah, Werner Herzog, like narrating Survivor Man's last episode.
And here we can see by the trees around him, the way the camera's moving, that death is near.
Death is near and inevitable.
He is in a fugue state at this point. His narration is falling apart. We're gonna go. Don't watch this next part. You can never see this.
Destroy that. Never let anyone hear that.
Yeah, that should never be seen. Yeah, so I watched The Mandalorian.
The three episodes, right?
Yeah, all three of them so far. So I'm current. Yeah, seeing him as the ex-Imperial guy offering the Mandalorian the huge bounty to go get the young Yoda baby or Yoda species baby or whatever.
Yeah.
That was interesting. It's like, oh, this guy in this? And then I went and looked that up. And did you ever see his interviews about this?
The one thing, no, I haven't seen it. The one thing I heard is apparently like the baby Yoda thing. They were gonna have a CGI thing, and like all the practical puppet was like temporary. And apparently he called the people cowards for like wanting to do CGI, so they kept the puppet, I guess.
Well, the stuff I read was because they were asking him like, oh, did you like Star Wars? And of course it's Werner Herzog, so he's like, I've never seen a Star Wars. Like, you don't know anything about it? He goes, well, I know what it is, but I've never seen a movie. And like, oh, why are you in this? It's like, well, Jon Favreau asked me, and he's a nice man. He's like, what's your favorite movie of his? I haven't seen one of his movies. He seems a genuine person.
I trust him, not the movie.
Yeah, so that was like, Herzog's take on being in Star Wars. Yeah, I like the people. I get a good feeling. His movies are really weird. Some.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like Queen of the Desert was totally strange. I've watched quite a few of his movies, and it's like, oh, this is.
Well, there's one he basically made the same movie like over and over again, but just slightly different. Yeah. You have like a Geary Wrath of God, where it's like these guys are trying to get a cannon over a hill, which became the thing. Which that was essentially the same plot of the movie. What What's the one where they get try to get the riverboat over a mountain?
I can't think of it. But yeah, I know which one you're talking.
Yeah, it starts with a C or whatever. Which I haven't seen that movie, which just seemed crazy because like there's like parts of that movie in the trailer where it's like, oh, it's this big action scene, but they're really just like letting a riverboat like go down a mountain crashing into shit.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, no safety standards, and him and Klaus Kinski are like plotted each other's death several times, but they kept working with each other.
Yeah, that was what movies have I seen? I've seen some of his documentaries too.
Yeah, because he'll do like narrative based stuff, but then like in between he'll do like 3 documentaries. He does a lot of shit.
Yeah, he does a lot of weird stuff. I mean, the last thing I watched was Queen of the Desert, and then of course he did my favorite Bad Lieutenant movie.
Oh yeah,
Shoot him again. Soul is still dancing. Like, what the fuck? I did
Well,
Rescue Dawn. I like that one.
the last time I meant to watch, he did that Lo and Behold, which is about like the internet age and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't watched that. Cause I think it's on Amazon, so I meant to watch it. It's like, oh sure, why not watch that? It's basically like Werner Herzog like figuring out what the internet is, and it's like, this is crazy.
Oh yeah, I think we were gonna watch that. Yeah, Lo and Behold, Reveries of the Connected World. I watched some movie with it was Mountain Climbers with Donald Sutherland, and then they did that weird thing with was it Brad Dourif, where it was basically like a bunch of NASA footage. Brad Dourif was an alien who worked for the CIA that was trying to understand humanity. And, I mean, it was all kind of it's all that kind of disconnected stuff.
Yeah.
But not the Mandalorian.
Well, interesting with the Mandalorian is like I didn't necessarily hear like a lot of praise for the show, and like it was a lot of like, it's okay. And then you watch it, it's like, yeah, it's okay because there's not a whole lot of like exposition or story, but visually fascinating, and you kind of have to bring your own story to it because it's not necessarily doling it out.
No, it's vague, which I kind of like.
Yeah,
I mean,
this
is
just a western.
yeah.
Because I remember like did you ever see like the original Kung Fu? You ever watch any of those episodes?
With David Carradine.
Yes.
Yes.
Where he just like walks into a town, something unfolds, and he leaves. That's kind of what happens here.
Yeah. Yeah. This is it's visually interesting. I like the characters. Yeah, I don't know much. I never knew much about the Mandalorians, and Star Trek canon doesn't exist anymore. So it's kind of this could just be a whole new thing for us.
Here, I'll correct you. Star Wars canon.
Yeah, or did I say Star Trek?
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, I fucked these up.
In case listeners get like, no.
Agitated because I don't really care about.
You know what I mean? Shut up.
I don't really care about one, and I really like the other. Now the one that was always kind of there and interesting actually is the better TV show. But, yeah, I mean it's interesting. I like the characters so far.
Yeah, I figured like that dude, like he must be really committed to this role, or he barely has to do anything. Because like I don't even know if this actor is actually the Mandalorian. Like they could have a stunt guy doing this whole movie, and he just comes in and does voiceovers. But
I think he kind of learned from like what's his name did in V for Vendetta, where you can do a lot of gesticulation and posture and hand gestures and kind of cock your head, because he does convey what he's thinking.
Yeah.
With even though he has this metal helmet on.
But I figure, well, when you watch the trailer, and it's like he always has the helmet on. And he's like, oh, he'll be taking that off every 5 minutes. Fuck no.
It's like
3 episodes we've never seen his face.
That's one of their religious things or whatever their group is now.
Yeah, that's what the itch thing, because like the whole like the idea that the Mandalorians is like this religion that's essentially like some cross between the Predators and like Klingons and shit.
Well, I know from like the fiction I read and when Lucas still had it, like the Mandalorians, like at some point, like the reason Boba Fett wore that armor was to terrify people, because the Mandalorians almost wiped out the Jedi, and they're not like they don't use the Force. they were just enough of badasses that they almost wiped out the Jedi. Now, but you never knew if they were good or evil. They always kind of had their own code.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like this guy too. It's like, oh, he'll kill a lot of people, but he won't do it indiscriminately. Like you have to attack him. Like I mean, he flamethrowered a stormtrooper to death. But he also saved the little Yoda baby. So.
And I believe this takes place between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. So this is like the downfall of the Empire, and this is kind of like remnants in the
5
shadows.
years after the Empire fell, yeah.
Okay.
But it's also way out on the fringes of the galaxy. So you know how much of that's gonna involve because Star Wars is a big universe. So,
Yeah.
you can kind of draw these stories out. I do like their motto though, like when horrible stuff is happening or just seemingly like gratuitous violence. It's like this is the way. It's like I'm gonna start incorporating that.
Or like the one alien that's voiced by who's the drunk guy?
Oh, Nick Nolte.
Yeah, and he's like, I have spoken.
Ugnaughts or whatever, the people that ran the carbonite freezing thing on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's he was one of those guys. But yeah.
And he's got that rifle that, like, when he puts the bolts in it, will just disintegrate people when he fires it.
Yeah, it's one shot, because it's all compressed energy instead of the 1,000 shots that a blaster gives you. That's like all compressed into one. What the advantage of that, I don't know, is, but it does stun people very good too.
Well, there's like prongs at the end, so it can just act like a cattle prod as well if he gets in a fight, or an up close fight.
And did you see the guy on Forgotten Weapons identified his gun?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was some obscure gun from,
Yeah, it was some like Spanish revolver from World War I or some shit.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, that's actually it is. That's what it is, or it's designed after.
Yeah.
I like how he doesn't have the flight pack that a lot of the other Mandalorians do. And
Yeah.
I gotta get one of those.
Well, yeah, well, at first I didn't know when this was set, so I thought I heard something that this was set like after Revenge of the Jedi, and then I was like, oh, is this guy actually just Boba Fett, and he's like slowly accumulating all his gadgets, and this guy's just gonna become Boba Fett, and then like, oh, then I got it mixed up, and it's like, well, no, this is still like kind of like a video game character. He's gonna accumulate all this shit throughout the series.
Yeah, I do like it. Does kind of follow video game logic and story progression.
Yeah.
Get more Beskar steel, upgrade. The
Go talk to the Mandalorian white lady with the Spartan helmet, so she can forge your Beskar steel or whatever.
Yeah, go talk to the lady with the Greek helmet. I do like the kind of like that he's not a perfect warrior. Like, yeah, he needs that armor. He gets shot a lot.
Yeah. Well, that knife seems badass. Like, he just stabbed that rhino once and it went down immediately.
Well, you know what those knives are, right?
No, what is it?
Why they look blurry? Because they're vibrating at like...
Oh, those like those...
Vibro knives or something.
Yeah, those are like those lightsaber weapons, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if they're anti-lightsaber, but no armor can resist whatever it's made out of, and because it's vibrating so quickly...
Yeah.
It can like go right to the heart of whatever.
Well, they've had those in other Star Wars fiction, and they basically they were on par with a lightsaber. At least you could fight somebody with a lightsaber. The lightsaber wouldn't cut through it or whatever.
Right.
Or at least whatever the special one they had. Like maybe it'll cut through other ones, but
I don't. It'll change. Trust me.
Yeah.
And then I like they had the assassin droid, who was voiced by the guy, the director of. Thor Ragnarok.
Oh,
I can never remember Takiki Watiti or something.
Takai Watiti or something like that.
Yeah, he was the assassin droid that was on it. I like the fatalistic robots now that inhabit the Star Wars universe. This guy was trying to initiate self-destruct like 3 or 4 times. Like, no, we're going to shoot our way out of it. There's no need to self-destruct.
I agree. Self-destruct averted.
And I liked how they showed how the IG-88s are like 360 degree articulated.
Yeah.
Because he can just shoot around corners and his arms spin around his body, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's got cameras on every side of his head, so.
Yeah, like I'd never seen that visual. His walking was even in this wasn't too impressive, but that's kind of hard to do.
Well, it's like building a character out of like what was like just a thing standing in the background of that scene where they're getting bounty hunters to go hunt down Han Solo. So it's like, you know, they're kind of blood from stone with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was fun to see. I've enjoyed the show so far.
Well, one thing I really liked, and I know they kind of like just completely like said fuck it in the second episode, is that it's the Star Wars universe, and then it almost has nothing to do with the Force whatsoever.
No, because he doesn't know what the Force is.
Yeah,
Because he's like not sure what. I don't want to call him Baby Yoda, but that's what.
that's what I mean. You say that, and people know what you mean
Yeah.
because it doesn't have a name. I don't even remember because I remember like having all the technical Star Wars manuals. I don't even know if Yoda has like a race associated or like he probably does, but I don't know what the race of Yoda is or whatever.
Yeah. So Baby Yoda, uses the Force to save him from the giant Triceratops looking thing, and he's like, I don't know what happened. Like they don't even know what the Force is, or they don't want to talk about it. It's like, he did something. But they don't seem to know what the importance of this child is, and no one does.
Yeah,
Or no one's explaining anything because it's kind of just like space adventure story.
yeah.
It's like we can fill in the blanks later or not. This guy really doesn't care. He just didn't want to see a baby slaughtered, which makes him a redeemable character.
And the show, like they're because it's not gearing towards like a broadcast schedule. The shows are like widely different lengths.
Yeah.
It's like here's a 50-minute episode. Here's a 36-minute episode.
Short episode. What? Oh, I guess, yeah, they can do what they want to.
Which there's been a couple of shows I've done that recently.
Yeah.
I remember like Andrew was talking about there was it was a like poor zombie show they did on Netflix where like I think like the first 4 episodes were like an hour and like the last episode was like 12 minutes. Like they
Production schedule.
Yeah, it's like did they intend to do that or did they just run out of money? I have no idea.
You guys take the rest of the week off. We're just going to seam some of this together and see what we can come up with. No one's watching anyway.
And I remember being like super impressed with the what was that? What was the Mr. Robot guy on the Julia Roberts show?
Rami Malek?
No, was it like the candidate or whatever? Where she's the psychologist and she's like working at as a waitress in the
Oh, Homecoming.
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and those were all like half-hour episodes, and it's like there's no way this is supposed to be an hour drama. There's no way you can cram all this in. It's like they totally did it. There's like you just cut out all the filler, and they even have it kind of be spacey and weird, and it still worked. So it's like you
They
don't.
throw in some weird David Lynch elements in that, like people just kind of staring. And then I love how it just ends abruptly.
Yeah.
They'll be having a conversation, the guy will walk away, and then credits come up like, wait, what? What's going on?
That's just a second act. Are you gonna fill this out? It's like we got another episode. Don't worry.
That's something else coming. I really like that show a lot.
Yeah.
It's sort of like got contrived there towards the end. Like I kind of knew something like this.
But yeah, it's 10 episodes. They're half-hour long. Like you're done with it, man. You're good. You didn't waste any fucking time.
No.
I mean, it might have its problems, but none of your time was wasted.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I was, held hostage,
Yeah.
which is good. And usually Jon Favreau does good quality stuff.
Yeah, I think I like almost all of his stuff.
Well, he knows how to make a story, and there is a lot of concision with him too, where it's like, okay, get to the point, fill it out. We don't need to fill it out. But he's really just the head writer and showrunner on this. Like, it's
Yeah, he
direct
hasn't.
people.
Yeah, he's like most notably as nowadays as a director, but he hasn't. And then like I remember there's an article like Jon Favreau is going to start directing in the second season. It's like, well, he didn't direct any. He's a showrunner. Why is he not directing any of these? But yeah, he's always some other people directing, and he's like the writer on every episode.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any other writing credits so far, but there probably is, but we'll see.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure that he's. I mean, I've never watched The Jungle Book or The Lion King or any of those things.
Yeah, I have no interest in those, but
Well, that's just called getting paid. I
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
what's going on. I liked Elf a lot, and I always liked the Iron Man movies. I never really got into Zathura.
that was like the sequel to. It was the unofficial sequel to Jumanji.
Okay.
Because Jumanji was actually a book, and the sequel to that was Zathura.
Okay.
Forget I think like Kristen Stewart. That was like her first role,
Oh, okay.
I believe, or somebody's famous. That was their first role.
And then
So-
I know John Favreau did some movie with Vince Vaughn about it was a kind of like a mob comedy movie. I didn't never watch that one. Either.
He's done several. Yeah, he's done because they did that. Swingers was a movie they did together. He didn't direct it, but they were both in it.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking about his directing, writing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I think there's one where like Vince Vaughn's is a boxer and John Favreau's his friend, and yeah, it has something to do with the mob.
Yeah. So yeah, The Mandalorian. Check it out. Can't go wrong. It's entertaining.
Yeah.
It's actually Star Wars again. Thank you.
Now it's not like out of the park home run, but like visually
No.
fascinating. If you give it some patience, I think it's been rewarding so far. So
I will say for the 3 episodes I've seen, it's super consistent.
yeah,
Like I'm never like, oh, this is a really strong episode. That was a really weak episode. This has been straight down the line, and because Star Wars expectations are like everywhere, I was actually pretty happy with this. I think this is a good direct, and also this is just such a huge universe. You can tell so many stories.
yeah.
I'm glad we're not just running around with lightsabers. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's like been there, done that.
Yeah, I'd rather him running around with power suits and cool guns. That's fine
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah. Slaughter Jawas by the hundreds. I did like that he finally. I saw that flamethrower. I was like, oh, that's where that would be effective. Yes, it works.
And I don't. Did you see any other originals that were worth a fuck for the Disney Plus stuff?
My time has been so compressed.
Yeah, I
It's like,
understand.
I'm gonna hammer through the Mandalorian because I know that's gonna be a good use of my time.
Yeah, I didn't check out anything, so that's basically all of it.
The black holes on there. I'm probably gonna watch that. Just for old time's sake.
But yeah, I think there's a couple others, but I think it's like some kid show or whatever. I think this is the only like adult show that's on there right now.
This is considered the flagship show by a lot of people.
Oh,
that
yeah.
I listen to. It's like, yeah, this is the best thing on that.
Yeah, and it's just like it's visually. This isn't a TV show. This is just a Star Wars movie that's in segments.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how it just looks amazing. Now apparently there's some new technology that they're using to make it more efficient, so they're not like cramming $100 million in for every hour they spend. But
Yeah, they're not holding back with it. You never look at this and like, well, they cheaped out there.
no.
And even the little Yoda baby looks cool. you can tell that because the other guy, the I Have Spoken guy, like I think that's a combination of puppet and CG,
Yeah,
but that's still like a physical thing. Like, and it looks cool.
yeah.
And the Yoda thing's just the cute factor on that so high. One of my favorite scenes was after he saved Yoda baby and he unscrewed the handle on his hyperdrive thing and just dropped it and the little hand caught it. It's like, oh, that's, this has a little bit of everything in it. It's not just dark Star Wars that
No,
everyone wanted. It's like, oh, yeah, there's little moments because those are human moments.
Baby Yoda eats a frog. He's like, don't do that.
Dog. Spit that out, and they just watch him eat it. Like, okay. But Yoda did things like that.
yeah.
Always doing weird stuff. It's like, I'm the
Well,
greatest.
and there's the one where, because didn't they say like the baby's 50 years old? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
so like apparently this race just like extremely slow development.
yeah. Like Yoda was like 800 years old or something.
Yeah, he's still, even then he was still childish.
Yeah, he was chasing around on the planet with the light. I will take the Yoda. Yoda, I will take you to thy will or something. You know, they always talk about it.
Yeah.
Other thing I've been watching the last couple weeks is Better Call Saul, which it's one of those shows because I watched the first season and I read some reviews and I'm like almost done with the second season and it's like this is really good, but like everyone said, it's real easy to kind of sleep on it
Yeah.
because it is not as dark and hard hitting as Breaking Bad,
No.
but you can tell like as much there's a lot of love that goes into this character, and like Bob Odenkirk, I don't know if is this what he's like in real life. Inhabit this so well, and the stories are well written and the things that happen are believable. For a guy who's a semi out of control guy who's taking chances to prove that he's not worthless.
And Michael McKenna's brother is really good as just like this guy who's really smart but also just like crazy.
Yeah, he's afraid that he's one of these people that thinks like Wi-Fi and electricity well, actually Wi-Fi wouldn't exist widely in the frame of this movie or show.
3G.
3G, yeah. But anyway, electronic devices are supposedly messing him up, but we find out it's just all a phobia more than any. There's no reality.
Yeah. And then Mike the Cleaner is always good.
Yeah. Jonathan Banks as Mike Ehrmantraut. And you understand that you get his background story because he never really did in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, why did he turn out to be? Well, he was always a bad guy. Like he was a corrupt cop from Philadelphia in a department full of corrupt cops. But, those guys killed his son because they were thinking, he's going to snitch on us. And then he kills those guys and runs to why he's in New Mexico. Because everyone in this show is from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're running out west to get away from Chicago and Philadelphia and all those places.
Also, like the show's called Better Call Saul, and he's never Saul, except for when he's like you get flashback sequences when he's a grifter.
Yeah.
Does he use the name Saul then? He's like Saul Goodman.
Yeah, it was a joke because the guy asked him, "What's your name?" He's like Saul. He's like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, Saul Goodman." It's kind of a play on words when he was the short con guy.
What's his actual name? It was Jimmy.
Jimmy. It's important. Jimmy McGill.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And then like the guy, like you got because there's a huge legal firm in Albuquerque called Hamlin and McGill. And that's the one his brother started. Because you find out like his brother was actually a real deal lawyer.
Yeah.
And I mean Jimmy McGill, he's a smart guy, but like he became a lawyer like through like going to community college essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so a lot of these people look down on him, but then they realize they all need him because this dude's really smart, but he always manages to shoot himself in the foot. Or you find out his brother's sabotaging him the whole, like the guy you think is against him, which is the Hamlin guy that owns the firm that his brother works for. It's like, that guy's always fucking him over. And you find out, no, it's his brother.
Yeah. Who's
the managing partner of that firm, even though he's off in crazy land, he still owns most of the firm. And so yeah, it's like more of a
because the brother will never believe that like Jimmy's grown up and like not taking a shortcut, and he's correct.
Yeah, it's just.
but also it's like Jimmy's talented, but he's also
self-destructive.
Yeah.
He does things that's like, if you're smart enough to get it that far over the line, why are you taking this left turn? It's because he's just a self-destructive guy. And he thinks everyone's out to get him. And he's not wrong, but they're not out to get him just because they hate his bubbly personality. It's because they know he's a con man.
But yeah, that was that great scene where like he saves that guy who's like painting the billboard.
Yeah.
And you feel like, this is genuine. It's just a happenstance moment. Like this is all gonna work out. And then it's like, this is planned all along. He's like, of course it was.
Yeah. You know?
But the way they just play it straight and you're like about to believe in Jimmy, it's like, all right, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot this guy just turns into an asshole.
I mean, the difference between this is like kind of the bumbling of just a flawed man who's very intelligent but can never conquer his weaknesses, whereas Breaking Bad was just like about a descent into evil.
Yeah.
This never really quite crosses the line into evil. Well, some of the characters do, but it's not as dark a show.
No, yeah. But like there's a weird underlining tension because basically everyone in the show is not in Breaking Bad except for like 2 people.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, what happens to this person? Especially like oh, what's her name? Like, you know, she's always an integral part of things. She's like seems to be, you know, seems to be like influenced by Jimmy, but she's, you know, hardworking and trying to do it the right way. And like, yeah, and it's like, what the fuck is gonna happen to her? Because like every time she shows up and like starts to like make headway, it's like something horrible's gonna happen to her.
We're gonna die.
And then also there's like that stuff that starts out. It's like I think it's only in like the first episode of every season where it's him and his incognito life where he's just like working at the Cinnabon, and,
Yeah.
it's just like him doing boring mundane things, and it's in black and white, and it's like you're just like waiting for a hitman to pop out and kill him, but like it never happens. Like, what the fuck's going on with that?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
has
holding
yet to be concluded. Yeah, has yet to be concluded.
Yeah. How much money did he leave with when he had lost his identity and started working at the Cinnabon?
I don't know. I don't think much, but I don't remember the financials at the end of that. It
Yeah.
seemed like most of the money was spent towards cleaning their record
Right.
than having some left over. Because otherwise, like, why would he work at a Cinnabon? Could just be a recluse.
And sit in his house.
Yeah.
watch TV, microwave his dinner. But yeah, that's it's been a good show. I consistently watch it when I have time. And I'm glad I did because I never.
Yeah, I bet I was a recommend it to you, and then I just kind of fell off after the 3rd season. I didn't mean to. It's just like everything on AMC is a chore to watch because, like I've explained before, their service sucks. But
Yeah.
I have access to Hulu, and they're pretty good at putting their stuff up.
But it's a good show. It's worth watching. Check it out.
Now just waiting for all of season 4 of The Expanse to come out.
Yep, and I was wrong on that. It comes out in early December.
Yeah, it's like December 13th or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a ways away, but at least it all comes out at once, so that'll be nice.
What was the contest they had where you could take frames? It was called the History of the Rocinante. And you could take frames from the show and like write your own history of what you think the Rocinante, what its story would be.
I don't remember that. Yeah,
It's over now. It was something that Reddit and The Expanse and Amazon co-sponsored.
because they did a lot of things. 'Cause I think one I was interested in is that they've done like a reproduction of the model of the Rocinante. It's like that seems cool, but it's like $300. Like, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I've looked for models of this stuff because the stuff on The Expanse, like you could make some cool models of that, but nobody's licensing. You know, I'm just stuck in World War II. That's what I have from. No, I'm not even doing that the last 2 weeks. See, I've been sick for a long time, but not as sick as my son is.
Yeah. Well, I already got like a bad cold this year, and then I just suddenly got one this last week. I was like, what the fuck's going on?
The same shit here. I mean, it's like.
Well, I think there's multiple strains of cold and flu going around, so.
Does that have to do with the trade wars?
Eh,
China's answer to free trade.
they just put more ducks in the cow pens.
Yeah.
This will work itself out.
Get a platypus in there. Let's see. been listening to following the impeachment hearings at all?
No, I've been just kind of waiting for bullet points to come out because a lot of that kind of seems to be a lot of filler. It's like, well, it's one of those things where it's like every week it's like, here's the smoking gun, and it never is. So I'm just like waiting till the literal smoking gun shows up.
Yeah, just people start shooting. It's pretty weird. I mean, I do not have the time to sit down and watch hours of that, and I do listen to shows that I trust that kind of highlight it. And it's just weird. It's like, oh, is anyone at the wheel of our government? Or just a bunch of weird factions doing stuff that nobody seems to care about or want to get right. I don't know.
Yeah, I just saw one more where like some senator was like interviewing, and it's like, where were you born? And this is all like to juxtapose against that guy who he was a child in like Poland or something like that, or in the Ukraine, and then but his parents moved from there, and he became an army officer later on, or was it Air Force, or I can't remember.
Was it the Colonel?
Yeah.
Colonel Vindran or whatever?
Yeah, and they're trying to like basically discredit him because like, oh, you were a child in a Soviet bloc country, you must be a traitor to America despite all your years of service and contradiction to that. We saw that movie Salt, and we believe that more than all your years of service.
You were part of the Soviet, child infiltrators. Have you seen The Americans?
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
The thing I liked was because the guy's actively like a colonel, I think, in the U.S. Army, and the one congressman either kept calling him by his first name or something. And he was like, wait, are we here in an official capacity? Because my title is Colonel. You'll call me Colonel. Like, he had to correct. It's like, if you're officially interviewing me as a government official, my title is Colonel. You are a congressman. I'm a colonel. This is how this works. Not like shutting the door on him, but kind of saying like, this is unprofessional. Because he was like, you're a congressman. I'm colonel. I earned that.
These hearings actually have like there's probably like but there is like a code of conduct to these hearings that you're never privy to, but these things like do pop up and like, no, this is how you're supposed to be addressed. These are formal hearings, like these are common courtesies we're supposed to give each other. This isn't a circus, but it's a circus.
Yeah. This is a show trial. It's not that kind of thing. Yeah, it's pretty weird. I don't even. I can't follow it all anymore. Yeah, I roughly know what's going on, and I just know that it gets every week it gets wackier and wackier with like the conspiracy theory aspect of it. Not that's coming from some weird thing on the internet, but from elected government. It's like, oh, that sounds really dumb, dude. You guys need to talk to Oliver Stone, and he'll show you how to make conspiracy theories.
Oliver Stone and I forgot that guy's name.
Alex Jones.
That'll work too. But I was thinking about, oh man, who is the guy who was Glenn Beck?
Glenn Beck, yeah. The diagram guy.
Yeah.
We're gonna connect all these dots. Homosexuality and gambling leads to the Jews. Like, hey, Glenn, they've been doing that for years. You got to come up with a new theory because you're not breaking any new ground here.
You ever notice that Jules has Jew in it, and I don't know a jeweler who isn't Jewish?
They control the jewels.
Jules is also a unit of power. Juul is also a thing to vape with.
They are corrupting our youth with homosexuality and nicotine. Yeah, it always comes back to that. It's like, oh, it's like, where's this going? Is this breaking new ground? No. Oh. Okay. Been there, done. Or to hate everyone. That's the other thing. It's like, you're either with us or you're dead. Wait a minute. That's what the founding fathers said. Think like us or die. Yeah, there's not. I don't have anything groundbreaking on what's going on right now. It just the the recaps and the highlights. They seem. It's getting weird to me at this point. Like, oh, this isn't even funny anymore. This is just strange. It's like these people are in charge of nuclear weapons. But I just don't think any. I think one of the reasons it seems strange is there's no script anymore. No one knows. It's like it used to be like, okay, we do this, we do this, we do that. We have a hearing about this. Maybe we find some improprieties. Maybe we don't. We politicize it. Now we're just like spinning lies and coming up with the most bizarre horse shit. I mean, and really horse shit.
Well, I think like as it becomes more official, it's like there's like, oh, we're gonna toe the party line until like, oh, towing the party line can mean jail time.
Prison.
Suddenly, I have a conscience.
I thought this guy had my back. It's like, did you? Are you paid attention? Yeah, he's everyone's best friend. Ask all his business partners.
He doesn't even have his son's back.
Yeah. He was raw dogging a porn star while his youngest child was being born. But whatever. No one gives a fuck, obviously, because they're still talking.
He
about
had Epstein killed.
I will tell you, I've been I propagate a lot of those. Not that anyone in particular killed Epstein, but whenever a good Epstein meme comes up, it's always on my Facebook.
Yeah.
Not that I believe it, but I just think it's hilarious. I mean, I do believe that was too convenient a death.
Yeah.
You're never going to convince
the
me.
conspiracy is like, who did this really benefit?
Yeah,
'cause
that's the game.
Because there's actually like so many people on all sides that are in danger that.
Yeah. It's not, was he legitimately killed by suicide? It's like, no, we know that's bullshit. Who killed him? And not that he's a good guy or his death like cheapened the world. No, none of these things. He was a terrible human being. I'm glad he's dead. I hope he's in hell. But his conspiracy theory around his death, that's exciting.
He deserved to die, but by a known hand for reasons.
Speaking of Better Call Saul, wow, this is weird. I was looking up something I was going to say about Jeffrey Epstein. I wanted to fact check something. Why? But I come to this website by a law firm. If Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused you, you may be entitled to monetary compensation. This is separate from the government's criminal prosecution. Limited time to act. Call now, and it's a fucking law firm. Wow.
You know, there's been a lot of those lately, especially with all those, like collegiate doctors molesting 400 people.
Oh yeah, yeah, that shit show at Michigan State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon across all colleges.
I don't know.
And there's that stuff with the Olympic Committee that seems it's basically just like.
Oh, what is that? Gymnastics.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like a horror show from one end to the other.
Just
it's
like molestation
who,
and prostitution and.
Who wasn't doing something wrong with their sex organs in this? Really, we just winnow out the good people and prosecute them because there's probably fewer of them. We need to have a fireside chat with like a legitimate moral force in this country. Good luck finding them. They need to start talking to people about their dicks and what they're doing. Because everyone needs to chill the fuck out. You're really, there's so much weirdness out there now.
Yeah, you know how you go vegan for a week?
Yeah.
Yeah, some people need to go asexual for like a month or so.
Yeah, just take off the robes, the strap-ons, release the sex slaves, let the dungeon girls run free. Everyone needs to calm down with your weird, after the 500th person you molested, you're like, when you're like, I'm full, I've had enough, the fuck is wrong? And did this always go on and we're just catching it now?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Has this always been like?
It's just like we transitioned from priest to like this was the next one up.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's priest now. It's what?
Although really like the school stuff should have been found out first. The priest stuff should have been hidden forever with all the money they had behind that. But
Yeah,
this came out backwards.
yeah.
It's like, oh, a priest will never molest a child. Oh, they'll molest 800 of them.
I still like the Adam Carolla theory about the Boy Scout leader. You want the guy who hates kids, who obviously hates kids, and it's like, who's taking the boys on a camping trip this weekend? Not me. I'm watching the game. Oh no, it's your turn. Oh fuck! You want that's angry, not the dude that's like, I'll go. No, that's the dude you don't want to be the scout leader, because that's how it was. It was like his unifying theory of how you keep your kids from being molested if they have to deal with other adults, is like, pick the guy that hates kids and doesn't want anything to do, because that's the guy who's not going to molest your kid.
You're like a modern parent, but I remember like when we were kids, and like I know we have a bit split up, but like, we'd like, I remember when I was a kid, I could just like tell mom I'm gonna like drive the bike over to my friend's house that's like a mile away, and all you have to do is like call when you get there. And like thinking about like how like closely guarded parents are nowadays, it's like, oh man, was I just like always moments away from being molested when I was a kid, and it just never happened?
No one cared enough.
Or is this just somewhat overblown?
I think it's a little overhyped. I mean, like with Grayson, well, he never really wanted to go anywhere. Like Jake lived behind us for many, many years. And they couldn't get along long enough to really play together at each other's houses, because they're both like essentially only children. It's like, well, these are my toys. You can watch me play with them. It's like, no, that's who wants to do that? And the same thing would happen over here, because Grayson's our only kid.
I remember like me and my friend were out skateboarding and broke his arm, and like just jumped in front of a stranger's car and had him take us to a hospital. Then I went home and played Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
It's like at all points during that thing, terrible things could happen. But it ended up just being a broken arm.
Well, I mean, really, most people live their whole life without being murdered, or ever encountering violence at all. Most people don't have, near fatal car accidents where they're like in a coma for 3 weeks. Most people, they go to home, they eat their dinner, and they go to sleep, and they wake up and go to work. That doesn't get any attention, though.
Yeah.
It's the stuff that gets attention. That it's like, oh, there's child molesters everywhere. No, there's some bad child molesters out there, and there's probably one in every community that wants to blossom into full bloom but never will. So it's like, yeah, statistically the odds are in your favor, because if the world was as horrible as we imagine, 10% of children would live to adulthood, and it would just be it'd be like a world where, if you just had goblins that randomly attacked you, it couldn't be more terrifying than what's in people's imaginations. It's kind of like
you can't be like you should be less cautious. It's like you should totally be as cautious if you feel comfortable. You need to be.
Yeah, as long as it's not taking it to extremes.
Yeah.
I use the parable of Detroit, because I live near there, and I've heard this, and I live by this rule. Like, Detroit's a place just like anywhere else. However, if you go there looking for trouble, you'll be guaranteed to find it. It is waiting for you. But if you're going there to watch a movie or whatever, go see a football game, you're not going to find a lot of trouble. If you go there looking for crack cocaine and prostitutes, you might find some trouble. As a matter of fact, I almost guarantee you will. So that's mostly what life is. Like, well, if you're not looking for trouble, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to find you. But if you're doing, stuff you shouldn't be doing, and shit happens, well, it's not a national news. It's like the Bermuda Triangle. It's like, no, there's no more people get lost there than anywhere else. Just a lot of traffic goes through there. Statistically, it's not in your favor. Or it really is in your favor, actually, but nothing's going to happen. Yeah, some people are really weird about their kids. We encountered that. It's like, we want to have a play date. What the hell's that? I heard that. It's like, well, what happens on that? Well, the kids come over to the house and play. It's like, oh yeah, he can come over to our house and play. I don't care. Well, I want to meet you guys.
I need to inspect your house.
Here we are. I mean, yeah. I usually keep the firearms locked up, and if they're not, they're unassembled. And we had the one parents where the kids came over and played in my bathroom, in the one bathroom in the house I had. Remember Maxim magazine?
Yeah.
I used to read that a lot, and I always had a couple sitting on the side of the chair, and they weren't nude women.
No, it's just like, lots of under boob and side boob.
Yeah, it was just
no nipples.
It was like light fare. Yeah, it wasn't like full vulva with people's legs 60 degrees or something. And yeah, this one kid went home and told his parents, it's like, guys, the Murphys have Playboys around the house. And of course, we get a phone call. It's like, there's not Playboys, it's Maxim. And then we get this like side thing. It's like, well, I think you really owe us an apology. It's like, well, do you? Well, good luck with that. And then they went and told all the other parents in the neighborhood. And she's like, I want them to apologize. And all the other parents laughed. It's like, you want Stacy and Nathan to apologize? Good luck. It's never happened. And it's not like we're horrifying people, but it's like, I'm not going to apologize to you for your bullshit. Well, he can never come over there and play again. Oh, there's a fucking one. Meanwhile, you were fucking around behind your husband's back and got divorced and everything. It's like, oh, we're the bad guys. Oh, yeah, I got it. The bad guys.
Oh, yeah, they had something to fight when real things were going on in the background.
Yeah, we got to worry about my kids seeing Maxim magazine in the toilet. Meanwhile, I'm blowing 3 dudes while you're out working yourself to death trying to pay this mortgage. It's like, yeah, we're the bad guys. We're the bad people. I mean, we are, but not in that way. We're the bad people in different ways. Everyone has a role to fill.
Oh, those other things remind me of gun stuff.
Okay.
Interesting happened with In Range and Forgotten Weapons is so they had a series a couple years ago called What Would Stoner Do?
Yeah.
Where they build an AR-15 with like modern stuff in the sort of in the guise of how Eugene Stoner built the original AR-15.
Uh-huh.
And so they're gonna have a What Would Stoner Do 2020 because the lower that they picked for it was a Palomar lower, but they reinforced kind of like where the webbing of your hand goes, because usually if you just make a Palomar version, the exact dimensions of the aluminum one, that's the weakest point of the Palomar lower. So they basically beef up that part so it's just as strong. Because the good thing about the Palomar lower is you can basically just run over it with a truck and it'll bounce back into spots in place. And it's lighter. At least I think it's lighter. Anyway, so the company that they got that stuff from, they made that stuff in 2013 and they never made any more. And after this What Would Stoners Do stuff came out, they've sold their entire stock of it and it doesn't exist anymore.
They're gonna come back? Or?
Yes, that's what they're doing. They're partnering with with KE Arms, and they are going to basically do a Mark III version of this Palomar lower, and make some changes that are make some smart changes to make it better.
Oh, okay.
And then they're gonna go through the whole What Would Stoner Do process. Like trigger control group, buffer springs, lowers, uppers, all that stuff, sights, all that stuff. They'll do that all again, and at the end of it, they'll have their new What Would Stoner Do rifle, or maybe it could be the same as the last one. Who knows? And then from that point, they used to have like a parts list. Like, here's all the stuff. Then you can assemble your own What Would Stoner Do rifle.
Oh, okay.
So this time they're partnering with Brownells, and at the end of this, you can just buy it from Brownells.
That's a good move.
And apparently, so I guess YouTube has some restrictions about like showing gun manufacturing on YouTube.
Yeah, sure they do.
But so Brownells has its own website, and it's gonna have like there's gonna be separate videos on Brownell's website about like manufacturing this stuff, and it'll just be on there, and you just go watch it on there. It won't be on YouTube, but it'll be there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
So I believe Brownells is an Iowa company, or at least they have headquarters in Iowa.
Yeah.
I saw one weird thing they had there's a device that they make. So I guess I'm not sure how this is, but like in California, you can have an AR-15, or at least this is one restriction where the magazine is not removable,
Oh, yeah.
and so you have to like it basically comes an old style rifle, and they basically have like this like almost like a stripper clip that you
Yeah.
can like use for your AR-15 and like stripper clip into the AR-15, but it's like a special device. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, when I saw the video, and the guy's like, he's like, "Oh, we don't have this here in Iowa, but anyways, here's what it does." He's like, "Ah, this is kind of pointless, but well, whatever."
Yeah.
For those California folks.
Yeah, when you live in a state where you just vote yourself into apocalypse. Let's let a bunch of lawyers and liberals run the state for 50 years. Yeah, that'll help. Yeah, Brownells is where I buy all my magazines for my guns.
Yeah.
Take magazines, like the 30 high cap magazines I have for my AR-15 all came from Brownells.
Yeah.
That's where the cops buy all that shit. So I just do whatever the cops tell me to do. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, that's where I bought mine, just to have extras for the range.
Yeah.
And then I forget. Sometime happened. So you usually get issued mags when you go to the range. And the last range I was at, we were going directly from the range to our AT. So we had it was on. Basically, it was on at reserves for like 3 weeks, because the range week is like 4 days. And I had to let somebody borrow my mags because shit happens.
Yeah.
And so I never got those mags back. And so when I went to check out, you have to give the mags back, and I just threw a couple of those Brownell mags I bought in there. They didn't know the difference, even though none of the mags we were issued say Brownells on the bottom. It looks exactly the same, and so. Yeah. Or I think when I handed it back to Armors, I think one of the guys kind of glanced at it and was like, "Should I question?" Nah, whatever.
I want to do this paperwork. Nope.
Yeah, it's all I lost out like $20 throwing mags to the Marine Corps, but also like I didn't have to speak to anybody or sign a paper after that. It was done.
Money well spent. Brownells.
Yeah, there's been like I don't even know if that changes. They've done a shitload of changes at the Marine Corps that I don't know if they've like filtered down to the reserves, but like they have all new rifles now. They're basically like piston-driven M16s from H&K.
Yeah.
I forget what those are called. It's like H&K 319 or some shit like that.
Yeah, it's an AR-15. It's piston, or it's whatever. It's an M4. It's piston-driven.
Yeah. They were supposed to be like, this is stuff with infantry, but they're supposed to have like a drone guy. Like you have like a radio guy and a drone guy, and it's like a squad of 5, and like one guy has like this special grenade launcher.
Oh, okay, cool.
But
well, you heard. Yeah, I mean, this is just shoring up our defense industry from its years in the wilderness. Because did you hear how many F-35s that they ordered? Like, it was some preposterous number, like 1,300.
yeah.
So it's just this crazy number, and then the British are going to order a bunch of them for their aircraft carrier. But a lot of people say, well, that's just to save Boeing from bankruptcy because there's so many problems with their civilian planes. But yeah, a lot of the gun stuff is huge conglomerates like Heckler and Koch and Fabrique Nationale, and like for the last 3 years they're getting into lost territory.
Well, everything I've used in the Marine Corps is Fabrique Nationale.
Yeah.
The machine guns were all FN or FN Herstal. That's
Yeah.
which that's just the US. Isn't that just the US component of FN?
Yeah, it has to. They have to be manufactured here if you want.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, like M249, the M240, those were all FN Herstal. The M16s I used were all FN Herstal. I mean, usually that stuff was like Colt, because Colt still like vaguely still exists, but it's like purely just a arms manufacturer for the United States. Like they don't sell anything, or it's like just like a naming right now. I can't remember. It's
They own the patents on all that stuff. But I
Okay.
think they're transitioning into being a holding company
yeah,
because a lot of arms manufacturers are trying to distance themselves from civilian. They want a separate division of their. They don't just want a separate division. They want a separate company that essentially is hollow.
yeah.
Because of all the lawsuits that they see coming. If our legal system allows that to continue, which I don't know. I don't know if you heard that Ginsburg is back in the hospital. The Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
It's like, and they say if Trump gets another one, if she dies or can't do that anymore, that all that shit's gonna vaporize. Nobody knows, but yeah. There's a lot of defense spending going on right now, but not because we're imminently going to war. They're just trying to keep.
Well, it's like vaguely transitional period. You have to like change things up, and because like the army finally switched over to what's the M113, which is essentially the my Sig P320, and that's they've been using the Beretta since like 80s, yeah. So everybody's getting new stuff. And I think the Marine Corps even has new uniforms now. I know, like the Army got new uniforms. They used to have terrible uniforms. They're just terrible looking.
The guys that came over to the house to talk to Grayson, they had the brand new, because their uniforms look kind of cool and weird.
Does it kind of have like tiger striping jungle stuff now?
Yeah, it sort of looks like that, but it also looks vaguely formal at the same time. Like it's obviously like a what they call a BDU, I guess, but it's also it looks like vaguely formal, like the way the markings they have for whatever unit they are and everything. Like all that stuff's like perfectly straight, and it's all Velcro, but it's real easy to set up, so it looks very futuristic, I'd say. Like if someone was trying to imagine.
Well, that's weird. Because all the old uniforms, they all had that digital camo, so you figured that would look more futuristic. But
the stuff they have now is like looks, it looks weird to watch them move in it.
yeah,
Because I even commented, I was like,
their pattern is breaking up. I can't tell where they are. The camo's working.
yeah. So it looked like vaguely new stuff. And I asked them about it. I was like, "Is that new?" And they're like, "This is brand new. We just got issued this stuff like a month before they came here."
Well, I remember like towards the end of my tenure or whatever, like you go to an army base, and army bases always have everybody, like everybody's there, every branch is there.
Yeah.
And you'd see guys like, because sometimes the Navy, like they'd have those blue uniforms. It was blue digital camo when I was in, but then there would be like kind of a subsect of guys that'd be like they'd have a slightly different MOS, and they'd have like these pale green kind of tiger stripe uniforms.
Yeah.
And it was like who the fuck is that? It was like, oh, those are Navy guys. And then like all the Army guys started getting like uniforms that are vaguely like that. It was like, all right, who's Army and who's Navy? What the fuck's going on there? Because when I was in, the Army just had like these weird pale green uniforms that looked like they like went to the washer like one too often.
Yeah.
And it looks like there would be sniper bait with a bright American flag on their shoulder, Velcro to their shoulder.
Yeah.
Because our uniforms, they have American flags on them, but they're in black and white.
Yeah.
And they're hidden in the uniform.
That's what these guys had.
Okay.
Everything was black and white. Even the sigils of like what. Except the airborne thing. The one guy had an airborne tab, and that was still yellow, but it was like muted.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were weird looking. He said everyone's getting all new stuff. They're getting new Humvee things. And
Yeah, I think the Humvee's pretty much phased out now, like except for like maybe use stateside. It's not meant to. Like,
National Guards use a lot of them. Here.
I mean, yeah, we'll use them here because it's like a transport thing, but like they. The feeling I got is like we're not sending them to combat zones anymore because they have the MRAP now, which is because it's all like what you're going to encounter is an IED, and we have all these trucks we built to counter IEDs. So, which
they have those around here too. Because I don't know if they're made here. There's a big transportation hub, but sometimes you see them on the back of semis. Those MRAPs, and sometimes you just see them straight up driving them down the road.
Yeah.
somewhere. And it's like, oh, that's an ominous looking vehicle.
oh yeah,
It's a frightening thing.
it's
to-
tall, very square and thick.
Yeah, and the glass, like the guy's face is distorted. It's so thick.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's those look like they threw some cash at them.
Oh yeah, they're like 20 times more expensive as a Humvee, but you're gonna save the troops.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I got for this week.
I've got plenty more, but we'll see when I start talking about Death Stranding.
Yeah, we'll try to pick that up next week.
I'll have to organize my thoughts because there's too much to talk about Death Stranding, and there's too many things to miss.
Well, I look forward to that.
All right.
All right. Well, anyway, for this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon. Goodbye, America.